Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first session on web development. I am Mayank, second year EEE department. We have Daniel on chats, and if you guys have any questions throughout the session, you can just type it out on chat, and Daniel will be handling it. Otherwise, I'll be stopping a few times in between. So if you have any questions, you can ask at that time as well. This is a pretty introductory session, and we'll be talking about how a web browser works, like what happens when you type a URL plus enter, then what happens, like what are the components of a web page, and a basic of HTML as well. So yeah, we'll start with what happens when we browse anything. So what happens is you first say you want to open Google. So basically it's open on every site the moment you click on Chrome. But first say you just type google.com, what happens next? So the browser looks up the IP address for the domain name via DNS. Now DNS, you can say it's a domain name system. Basically what it does is it keeps record of every domain name and its corresponding IP address. So the moment you click enter, uh, your input, that is for say google.com, is sent to DNS and you receive a corresponding IP address. It all happens in the backend and you never get to know. So what happens is that once you receive the IP address, the browser sends an HTTP request to the server. From the server, you get an HTTP response back. Now, what happens is that in the response, you also get the HTML file with it. So every website that is made of an HTML file. So what the web server does is it just returns you that HTML file, and what happens next is your browser keeps sending some of the get request to the web server and get some response in return, because there are many other aspects to a website in like except HTML. Like there are JavaScript files, there are images, there are CSS, all those stuff. And so like until your website is fully loaded, these steps keep on repeating. So once the page is fully loaded, then it depends upon how you interact with the web page, and similarly the request is sent to the web server. So if moving ahead, what all is there in a URL? So URL can be broken down into following parts, as you can see on your screen. The first part is a protocol or scheme. The scheme tells web servers which protocol to use when it accesses a page on your website. For say, this one that you are seeing has an HTTPS protocol. So there are many other protocols like FTP or HTTP and various others. So nowadays, but HTTP is used generally because it stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure. This means that it tells your browser that the HTTP file that you're receiving is kind of secure and it can't be attacked by cyber criminals to access your passwords or any other information that you have or that you are going to enter on that site. The second part is a subdomain. So consider your Consider your website like a house. So subdomains are like specific rooms in that house. A subdomain in a URL indicates which particular page of your website the browser should serve up. For say, right now you can see there's one courses subdomain that you can see. But for say the site also has a blog page. So you can, instead of courses, at that time there will be blogs.techpixels.com, something like that. So the third part, domain, can be broken down into two different parts as well. The first part is before.com, which is the TechPixies. It is also known as second level domain. So the second level domain tells the name of the website that you are currently visiting. It just tells the user, okay, this domain or this site belongs to this particular company and stuff like that. The other part is called the top level domain, the .com part. So this specifies what entity this site, like what entity or what kind of organization owns this site. For say, this .com is intended for commercial entities. So businesses or any those profitable companies, they all go with a .com top level domain name. Whereas if you talk about universities or colleges, they use a .edu domain name and stuff like that. There are many more domains, like top level domain name like that. So the last part, the slug or the subdirectory part. A subdirectory helps people understand which particular section of web page they are on. For instance, you own a store per se. So per se, you own an online store, and there are several products that you have displayed on your store, right? So your per se, it's a clothing store, so there can be maybe shirts, t-shirts, and there are many other aspects, right? So for say, a user is on the shirts page right now. So that slug part or that subdirectory part will indicate that which part of the web page your user is currently at. So what is a website? Website is a collection of web pages and related content that is identified by a common domain name and published on at least one of the web servers. Now, why does a website need to be published on a web server? It's quite obvious. If you remember in the starting, we said that from the IP address that we get from DNS, we send that to web server in order to get some requests from there. Like our HTML page is actually stored on a web server. So it's kind of obvious that if our page isn't there on the web server, we won't be able to access it, right? So for a website to be published, it should be there on a web server at least. So websites can be broken down into two parts, like two major categories, I would say. One is dynamic website and the other one is static website. So dynamic website is one which interacts with you, like it has some user specific changes to it. Per se, you open up Facebook, right? Or Instagram. So the moment you open it, there's one login page, right? So you need to enter your data, like your username or password, and there's something that runs behind and checks if the credentials you entered are correct or not. And if it's correct, then it leads you to some other page, and that page is specific to your details, right? Like it's not like you will enter your own data and it will lead you to some static page, like some page which everyone can access. No, it will lead you to a page that is only specific for a user. So sites like that are called as dynamic website because it's more of user interaction over there, and it's not pre-coded or hard-coded by the developer. It changes upon the need of the user. So websites can be classified, as I told, into two types. Static website is the one that has web pages stored on the server in a format that is sent to the client web browser. So in case of static website, it's nothing but just there's an HTML file stored. Everything is written on it, and the server sends it to your browser. Your browser just displays it. That's it. Whereas in a dynamic website, this is not the case. In dynamic website, there are certain codes as well as your HTML file stored on the server. And from there, the user tries to access the HTML file, but before he actually opens the HTML, there are some basic background functions running which determine how the HTML file should look like for the specific user. So that's the difference between static and dynamic. Most of the websites that you see today are dynamic kind of websites because it's like we don't want every user to see the same page, same thing, like no difference at all. So it's most dynamic websites today. So what is a DNS? DNS, as you can say, it is a phone book because kind of concept, because what it does is it maps every URL that you give to a specific IP address. And that IP address is used by the browser to get access to the web server. Now, first say like you have a domain name. So that domain name will first be registered on the domain name system, and you'll get an IP address from there. And your web server will also get an access to that IP address and will say that, okay, if this IP address comes to, like if there's a request for this IP address, then these are the files that should be returned. So that's this kind of system that works behind the scene. Uh, Websites can also be classified into, like, making a website can be divided into two parts, I would say, the front end part and the back end part. So the front end part is basically the HTML and the CSS part, which is still this part itself. The part after that is the JavaScript part. So what happens is that uh, front end part is basically what a user sees, right? So it's more like how you see a website, like whenever you open something, right? So you see there's a beautiful background or text or something else moving on a website. So that's all part of front end, like how data is being displayed, how a user interacts. All that is part of front end of a website. The backend part is basically the computation that goes behind, right? Like, first say you entered your username and password, right? So the backend will try to check whether that username and password belongs to you or not. Like, it will check whether both are correct or not. If they are not correct, then it will prompt the front end that no, something is wrong, and the front end will work accordingly, and something like that. So for say that it's a blog site. Okay, so what front end will be taking care of is how the blogs will be displayed. Like, for say you have written an article, so how that article should appear to the user. Whereas the backend will take care of how where the blog is to be stored, what all is the content of the blog, who is the author, who can edit, who liked, and all those content should be handled by the backend. It should be stored by the backend somewhere in their database. So this website can also be said, like, if it can be assumed as a human body, in which HTML is just the skeleton part of it. It just defines some basic structure for the website, of like how the web browser should interpret it. The CSS is the basic styling that is added to an HTML, and the JavaScript is all the functionality. So just HTML and CSS would be quite static page. There won't be any dynamic work that could be added using just HTML and CSS. So, but using JavaScript, you can add dynamic things to your website, like maybe an alert box or something like that. So, what is HTML? It stands for Hypertext Markup Language. You guys must have heard it many times before as well. So, markup language defines a set of rules for encoding documents in a format that is both human readable and machine readable. So it's like markup languages can only be, it's not like it can only be read by humans or only can be read by machines. It can be read by both, because we as humans are typing it, so it needs to be easy, as well as it should be like we should be comfortable to type it, whereas the machine should be able to read it in a proper manner. When we talk about programming languages, so programming languages are a bit different. It's more like, while typing, it's more of user friendly, which is human readable, but then it is interpreted or compiled by some compilers or interpreters, whatever type of language it is, and then it is fed to the machine so that machine can also read it. So keep in mind that HTML is a markup language. So what is the difference between a markup language and a programming language? The markup languages are interpreted by a browser, which I told, whereas an programming language is compiled by a compiler or interpreted by an interpreter. So another difference is that markup language is used to present information, whereas programming language is used to give a certain set of instructions to the machine to perform a particular task. Like in case of markup languages, it's just that you're saying, okay, this needs to be displayed, that's it. Whereas in programming language, you need to specify, okay, that this work has to be done like this, so that the computer does that. So yeah, now coming to HTML skeleton. So as I told, that HTML itself is a skeleton of website. So there's a particular way of writing HTML files as well. You just can't type HTML like that, but there's a certain way that you need to follow so that your browser gets to know that, okay, the file that it has received is an HTML file, and how everything needs to be interpreted so that it's common for all the browsers to display your site in your specified manner. So if you look at this part, then you will see this is a rough layout of an HTML file. First of all the HTML files needs to be saved by an extension of .html or .htm. So first of all, HTML is not a case-sensitive language, which means that you can either type in small letters or capital letters. It won't matter. So every HTML file should be enclosed by this HTML tags. These angular brackets, everything written inside angular bracket is called a tag. So inside an HTML, everything should be inside these HTML tags only. Whatever is outside these HTML tags are not a part of an HTML file. Then inside this head, there's a head part and there's a body. So whatever you want to display on your website, like first if you're building any form, so your form, say input your input text field, your checkboxes, your radio buttons, or maybe your images, whatever headings, everything needs to be specified in the body tag. So what is the use of head tag then? The head tag is basically used for fetching data and setting up your browser. For setting up your browser, by that I mean that there's this title tag as well, which is inside head. So whenever you open any site, on the tab you see there's something written on it, right? So that is mentioned inside the title tag. That mentions that, okay, for this HTML document, this is the title that should be displayed on the tab. Otherwise, inside head, there are many other things that needs to be mentioned. For say, you are using some kind of style on it, CSS for say you are using. So you need to link all those spreadsheets, like all those style sheets and all inside the head itself, because it basically sets up everything before your body gets displayed to the user. This part is the actual code that's like just a basic skeleton kind of thing for HTML. So you will observe that this HTML has somewhat similar to this. Now the only difference between these two are that there's a one forward slash over here. So what this means is that this HTML tag that was opened over here is closed over here. This is a closing tag. Any tag with a forward slash is a closing tag. So, and similarly for body, head, title, everything has a closing tag. Like not every tag in HTML has a closing tag, but yeah, like these are few basic ones and they have a closing tags as well. So what does this doctype.html mean? Now, because this isn't mentioned over here, and as I told earlier that everything that comes outside this is not a part of an HTML file. So we come to this doc type. So this doc type is also known as document type declaration. This basically declares to your web browser to what kind of file you should be expecting from the web server. For say that, or what kind of file you have in your hand and how you have to display it or how you have to render it to the screen. For say it's doc type HTML. So it means that your web browser will get to know that, okay, it's an HTML file that we received and it needs to be displayed as an HTML file only, like not like any other file. No, because there is a possibility that maybe there are other tools that use kind of similar approach of writing the markup thing, but maybe the developer doesn't want to use that way of tool. Like maybe it could generate some kind of difference. So this doc type over here just mentions that, okay, we'll be using an HTML kind of rendering, and the file that you have in hand is an HTML file. That's it. Tags are hidden keywords within a web page that define how your web browser must format and display the content. So what does this mean is that there are several tags in HTML. Okay. For say there's heading tag, which is for this H2 tag over here, this H2 over here is a heading tag. I'll be talking about these later as well. So there are many other like body, HTML, head, title. There are all kind of tags, right? So it just tells your browser that okay, if anything is there between the body tag, it needs to be displayed on the screen. If anything is there inside the title tag, it needs to be displayed as a tab title, kind of stuff like that. So HTML tag just defines your browser that okay, if there's something inside this tag, then you should do corresponding thing. And what? Sorry, just one second. Yeah. So after this, you can also see over here is the attribute. So what is an attribute is like mostly all the tags in HTML have an attribute to it. So what an attribute means is that it just provides additional information about the element. For say if you just want to read this in a normal English manner, but you will get to know that okay, there's something called H2, and we are trying to add some style to it. And what kind of style we are trying to add is we are just adding some font size, and you want that to be 18 pixels, that kind of stuff. So what it's saying is that we have an element and we want to add some features to that element. So that's the work of an attribute. So you'll notice here that everywhere, like in HTML, this is a common nomenclature or the common syntax, I would say, that uh, every attribute should be in name equals to inverted comma value pair, which means that the attribute should be the name, like overhead style, then it is equal to, then inverted commas, and then values. So this entire thing from here to here is the value of this attribute. And there are many, like almost all HTML tags have some attribute to it. So yeah, before we move ahead, so if you guys have any questions, you can ask. Yeah, let me check the comment section once. When we go to download. Okay, yeah, this happens mostly because see, like what happens is every file that is stored on a web server is kind of encrypted, because if you store your web, first say you built a website, okay, and you just want to upload it or publish it anywhere. So what you will like to say is that like you will obviously want it to be protected, right? You won't want that anyone else could access it. That's why it's kind of complicated, like URL becomes complicated because of encryption, nothing else. What does on the fly mean? It means that when the user is trying to access the site, for say that you entered your login ID and password. So after you have actually like entered your login ID and password, then there's a certain request sent to the web server, which kind of specifies that okay, these changes are to be made. So these changes are made prior to rendering it. Prior to rendering is the meaning of the on the fly. Like it's not something like the moment it is received by the browser it gets displayed. No, it's like they receive it, they do the necessary changes, and then it's rendered. That's the meaning of on the fly. Any other questions? If you guys have, you can. Okay, some sites use it. It kind of depends. See, dynamic or static depends upon what kind of interaction the site is letting you to do. For say there are first, yeah, if there's any site which is allowing uh, all the users to see the same page, I would call it more kind of static, because it is just taking your login info to store it somewhere for their own purpose. They're not using it to, like personalize the site for you. So it's more of static page because you can't interact anything else, right? It's more of a static kind of thing, and anyone has already written everything on it, and it's just showing that again and again to everyone. So it's kind of static page. Any other questions? Okay, so I'll be moving ahead. Yeah, so we have discussed till here. The last thing was what is a tag, like, and the attribute, right? So the next thing we have is the HTML tags. So I have listed few, like HTML has like many number of tags. There's a tag for almost everything that you want. So I have listed out very few, but which are very important that you'll be using in almost all the files, HTML files that you'll ever create. So first is the heading tag. So a heading tag is obviously used for a heading, right? So the basic formatting that HTML provides is that the heading tag will have this bold thing. Now HTML or the web, the HTML has like different level of heading tags as well, because as you can see, it is this one is quite bigger than this. So there are six heading tags in total. H6 is the smallest font size, whereas H1 is the biggest font size. So and also these heading tags are not empty tags. What is an empty tag is that it doesn't need a closing tag. Uh, or say you want to just skip a line, then I don't think you will want a closing tag for that, because the moment you say that, okay, I want to skip a line, it should end over there. You don't want to just explicitly write that, okay, I want to skip a line and close this comment over there, right? So those tags which don't have a closing tag with it are called as empty tags, whereas these like heading tags, all of them have a closing tag with them. And always these tags come in pair. Like for say there's H1, so after that you need to close H1. It's not like you can close any other tag instead of H1. You need to take care of that at least. And the major problem is that HTML won't give you that there's an error or something like that, as in case of C++ or Java. You need to figure it out on yourself when you see the output. Then these are also a few common tags, which is paragraph tags. For say you are writing some kind of paragraph, you want to, separate it from the other stuff that's there in the page. So you use the paragraph tag. It also breaks line before and after the paragraph is over. Then there is an horizontal line tag, the HR. It's an empty tag, as I told, because you just want an horizontal line, right? You don't want to specify that, okay, start a line and then in next line close the line, right? Because it's a single line, so just one HR should do. Similarly goes for the BR tag. It's a break line tag. It just skips like first wherever you ended, it just breaks that line and starts with the new line. It's also an empty tag. Now this link tag is something that's important, and it's basically used for like you have for say multiple pages built for your website. It has an about us page, a contact us page, a projects page, a team members page, something like that. So you want that your user should be able to click on some content and should reach to that particular page, right? So the link tags is used for that purpose. Like you can link two pages together with the help of some content. So that content which should be clicked should be written over here, whereas the link to that website should be here. And these are the attributes. There are many more attributes that we'll be discussing. So yeah, that's enough with the PPT. I'll move on with the illustration part. So yeah, first of all, I'll be using VS Code for this purpose. You can use any other text editor. Even Notepad would do, but like I like using VS Code because it has some great features, I would say. So yeah, first of all, we'll just write the basic doc type thing. So VS Code provides us with this shortcut, which say like using which I could just type, like exclamation mark and tab, and it will automatically type this skeleton for me, and I don't have to do it again and again. So I've already saved this file as a .html file, so I don't need to worry about much things. First of all, I'll start with the heading tag. So I say this is a heading tag. So I used H1 over here, so I have to close an H1 tag also. Then I'll just copy paste this 6 times. 2, H3. So yeah, now once this is done, I have to just save it. So once I save it, uh, what happens is that inside the folder where I've saved it, there's this kind like HTML or Chrome HTML document will be made. When I double click, so this will open up on Chrome, and we'll get this kind of output. So this is, let me zoom on this. Yeah. So this is what we get as an output when we use 6 HTML heading tags. So this being H1, this being H2, H3, H4, H5, H6. So you might wonder what would happen if I just type H7 instead of, because I told that there's only 6 like heading tags vary from H1 to H6. What happens if we tap H7? So nothing much will happen. And since I told that HTML never gives you errors, so this is the output that you will get. So you'll see that this is not a heading tag, rather it's just a normal, it's a normal, text that's printed. So that's the difference between a heading tag and a normal tag. If you also notice properly, then you'll see that the heading tags over here have bold, or they are kind of bold, but these aren't bold. So that differentiates, like this differentiation is created by HTML so that it's easier for users to, change, like to determine, okay, like I have a heading, so I can use a heading, like just to create some difference between a heading and a normal text. Before we go more on this, I'll show you one more thing that we'll be using quite often when you'll be building sites or web pages, whatever. So first, you open any website, right click and inspect. So this is the developer tools that popped up over here. This is the developer tools that you will be using quite often when using uh, when you're trying to build anything, or you're trying to figure out what's going behind, right? So the the changes that you make here are temporary. Like it won't matter, whatever changes you want to do, you can, and it won't affect anything. So for say, uh, yeah, the Hindi is written over here, right? Instead, I could just remove and press enter. You can see that it got removed from here as well. So, and similarly, like I can remove anything, whatever I want. I can just mess with it however I want to. And it's kind of the playground that you want when you're when you're building any website, because you want to know what all effects can happen if you are removing something from your website. So first I removed all the image sources that were present over here for Google, that Google logo. So it got removed from there. Even I can remove that Google written over there. Instead of that, I can type what hacker space, and yeah, hacker space is there. So it's all that kind of things. And not even this, you can also play with these, like these are the stylings that are being used. So for say you want to increase this font size to something, for say 60 or 50. So you can do it without any issues. And the best part is it's not getting implemented anywhere. So everything is on your site. And if you are bored, you can just refresh, or you want to just change everything to normal, refresh, and you're back to it. And you can again mess with it. So this is a developer tool which you'll be using quite often while building anything. Yeah, now getting back to where we were, the heading tag. Now after heading tag, we have the link tags. But before link tags, I also want to show you one more thing, is the divisions. Like, yeah, like inspect only again. So yes, you can see that over here, if you notice properly, yeah. So there's this div written over here. What this means is that this is a division of the website that you are currently looking on. Okay, so you can see that the whole page is actually a div, and there are many different divisions. There's one for nav bar, then one for logo, one for search bar, one for these things, right? So websites are often divided into small divisions so that it's easier for developers to, like do modifications to a particular div and try to check what is happening. So yeah, this is the division tag. So for a division tag, it's nothing. We just add a div. So I'm using a extension for VS Code that automatically aligns everything. This alignment is not needed, but when you'll be doing all the, like when you'll be coding whole websites and all, then this alignment is preferred because you'll have a clear idea about which tag is opening and closing at which point. Otherwise, you might land up with some errors, getting confused about what is happening or not. So I have commented out the heading tags for now. So ahead, I'll be moving with link tags. So yeah, this is a anchor tag. We also say this link tag as an anchor tag. The main attribute of an anchor tag is href, which basically is for referencing, hypertext reference. For say, I want to type any site for, I want to go to Google. If I click at this link, so I'll just copy this URL. I'll paste it here, and over here, like because we want to specify like clicking on what should lead us to Google, right? So first, say I type Google and save. If I refresh our page over here, since I commented all of that thing, so everything went off, and you can see this Google over here, right? So if I click on this, you'll see that Google will open over here. So this is what hyperlink does. It basically connects you to the URL that you wanted to go. Now you will notice that if I just type normal Google somewhere, I just type something, I'll just tap it with H1 tag. Yeah, so there's a difference between this and this. You'll notice that there is a underline under this, and my cursor gets to pointer mode whenever I hover on it, right? So these are the features that anchor tags provide to you, that it tells a user that, okay, that this thing is a link. It's not some normal text. You can also change it on your own wish, but still this feature is provided by HTML so that your user gets to know that, okay, it's not just a text, it's a link. Also, if you noticed or not, I don't know, but this color changes, right? Like initially it's blue, then once you visit it, it turns to kind of purple color. And when you click, it's red. So these all styles are being provided by the HTML itself with the anchor tag. So you also notice one more thing is that when I click Google over here, the Google opens in the same tab. It's not redirecting me to some, it's not opening some other tab. It's the same tab that, like, it's just changing the link from whatever our local file to that file. We can also add many other features. For say, I want the user to mail to someone when it clicks on that link. For say, I say mail to someone at the rate sample.com, and it's a mail link. Save, and when I refresh, so when I click on this mail link, yeah, right now you can also notice the difference between a visited link and a non-visited link. This mail link is not visited, and that Google link was visited by us. So yeah, when I click on this mail link now, you will notice that Microsoft has its own this. So yeah, it will redirect me to the mail thing, and over here there's already this to mentioned, which is someone at example.com. It's same that we mentioned over here. So this kind of links are useful when you want the user to send you a mail, or say you are opening some kind of recruitment process or something. So you can add this to, and you can just add a text beside it stating that if you want to register for an interview, mail your link or mail your resume to this link, kind of thing. So mail link is used for this purpose. Now there's also something called as your phone link. For say you want the user to, the user will be directed to a call link, for say to whatever number you want, for say 9170, whatever you want, and just say call, save. So when I click on this, so you'll see over here there's a pop-up which says that this number will be sent from my system to, because I'm using a laptop right now, to a phone device from where I can make a call. So that number will also get transferred, and you'll also notice this phone symbol that appeared because I'm trying to make a call and my laptop isn't capable of making a call. That's why. So you can also tell your users to call, like to direct them to a call link for this very purpose. Otherwise, for say, yeah, also one thing, when you go, like when you hover on it, you don't see any information about it, right? Like what does this link do? Nothing, right? Because when you just hover on it, you don't get any information until you kind of click on it. So first you want to provide your info, like your users about what will this do is, so we can type an attribute called as title. So inside this, first say I want to write this will, if I say something like this, so when I refresh and I hover on this, see it, like I got this info that, okay, if I click on this, this will redirect me to the mail app. So it's kind of that, the titles is used for that. And not only this, basically inside a anchor tag, you can write anything. For say you have an image that you want that if the user clicks on this image, then he should be, like diverted or sent to another page. For say now if I type this, and again Google itself. Now, instead of typing anything here, we'll simply add an image tag, because to add an image in an HTML file, we use an image tag, which is img tab, and then we need a source. So to add source, there are multiple ways, but since the images are inside the folder that I am currently using, so I'll just have to type the name of the image, which is images.jpg. So I'll just type images.jpg. I don't need an alt tag over here because Yeah, save and refresh. So it looks like a normal image, but when I hover on it, I get this pointer thing, and when I click, it directs me to Google. So one obvious question that might come to your mind is that what if we want a new tab to be opened when a user clicks on it? So for that, there is an attribute called as target. So there are many there are many values to this attribute target. Uh, by default, this attribute is underscore self, which means that the link that you're referring to will open at that tab in that tab itself. For say you want to open it in another tab, then for that you use underscore blank. If I do save, refresh, and the first one, so I click and you see that a new tab is opened where Google is there, right? So there are many more options to it, but these two are the the most used tags that like most used values in target attribute for link. Otherwise, you can also have something like underscore top. So you won't be able to see its effect right now because we don't really have anything on our site right now. But what it does is, for say you have scrolled down, for say you have some web page which is quite long and you need to scroll down. So when you click on that, so it will first of all go to the top and then would direct you. So it's something like that. So underscore top, you won't be using these often. Most often used will be blank or self. So yeah, that's all about the link tag. And yeah, you can pretty much add anything inside it. It's your wish. So coming towards this image tag, because we used image tag over here. Let me comment out everything else. So yeah, VS Code provides us with so many shortcuts that don't have to bother about these things. This is how you add comment in HTML. It's uh, angular bracket, then exclamation mark followed by two dash, and comment ends with these like two dashes and angular bracket. So if you're using VS Code, then the command is control plus forward slash. Otherwise, yeah, it's just control plus forward slash and it would do. So yeah, the image tag. So basic attributes of image tag is a source, which can be determined upon where the image you are using is stored. For say the image wasn't in the same folder I was using it, so I had to type down the entire path for that image. So if I just save this and refresh, this is the image that we have. So we can also specify something which is alt, which is the alternative to this image. For say due to some reason this image doesn't shows up. So what should I write? Like my user should be able should know that okay the image isn't coming there, but that image is of something. Like for say this image is a meme, so I can say it's a meme and save. So if for some reason this doesn't load up, but it is, so I'll do one thing. I'll just yeah, for say that image didn't load up. So the alternative text that was there will load up and say that okay the image isn't loading, and this icon over here is the error that image isn't loading, and this is the alternative tag to that image. There are many more attributes which are height. You can mention it in pixels. For say I want height to be 500 pixels. Save, refresh. So 500 pixels height. Similarly, you can do something with width. Width, say I want 200 pixels width. Save, refresh. So you can actually just play along with it about how it changes should be made. There is one more attribute that you should try later on is the loading attribute. in the image tag itself. So what this does is that it will give a loading, like it won't just load the image out of nowhere. Like it won't be kind of sudden change that image loads up. It will wait for certain instructions that should be included, or certain instruction that needs to be completed before that image is actually displayed. So the image attribute has that work. Now, for say you are making a dynamic website and you want that image to only come up when, for say, the user has entered some data. For say, okay, yeah. So for say when you press enter, then there's this reCAPTCHA thing that pops up, right? In which you need to select which images is the part of what do you say? Traffic light, maybe something. So all those can be handled by using this image on loading thing. Yeah, so we'll stop for a minute here, and if you guys have any questions again, so you can type it out, or you could just can we copy the codes while inspecting? Yeah, you can, but there's not much need. Like it won't actually, like nothing would happen even if you copy, because it's a static thing that loads up, right? Because what happens is that the site is made dynamic, but the changes, when it has already been done, it gets uploaded to your web browser. There's something known as DOM. Okay, so everything that's there on HTML is uploaded on DOM, and at the end you have something called as a static page that is rendered to you. So if you just copy while inspecting, you can, but it won't actually, benefit you. Like there's no sense of doing it. Do you like VS Code because of dark mode, Virginia? Yeah, this is one of the reason I like VS Code, but VS Code actually has too many benefits. It is way more user friendly than any other text editor. You can also try ahead with Sublime Text. It's also good. Plus, VS Code has this amazing, what do you say, community that keeps on forming, like keeps on updating it. So you don't have to worry about any updates or things that's coming up. Okay, and then it is, what does the function dir do? Okay, so dir is specifies the text direction of elements content. For say that you want some contents to be displayed from left to right instead of right to left. So you can just use dir and give it, like it's a tag. It's not a tag basically. It's an attribute mostly. I guess that's what you're referring to. It's an attribute generally, dir, and it's just to specify that I want it to be read from left to right or right to left. Yeah, the session is being recorded. Is it possible to add marquee? Yeah, it's possible to add marquee, and there's a different tag for marquee as well for HTML. Basically, HTML has like everything you want, there's a tag for it. Marquee has a different tag in HTML. You can do it. More questions? Some sites, no. What was the self function you mentioned after blank? So the self, what it does is that, see, like by default, the target of any link tag is self. What it does is opens the link at the same tab instead of opening a new tab. So it's by default, nothing else. And like it's not generally used, but if in second year there's a subject for web dev that you might have to study, and they might ask these things, that what is the by default function of target. Any other questions? Okay, so I'll move ahead. So we were over here, right? So Image tag. Image tag is already done, right? Because we have some basic few more tags like attributes are there in the image tag, but these are the few that you'll be using more often. Next is the form tag. For say that you are building a form. So what are things are there in a form, like a general purpose form is a text area to write. For say you're registering to some social media site. So what are things you can see is your a text field where you can enter your name, maybe your date of birth, password, then gender. Maybe for gender it's a radio button or something like a select uh, drop down list, something like that. So everything like that is is mentioned inside the form tag. The form tag specifies that whatever is inside is a part of a form, and all these data needs to be processed at once when a button is clicked or whenever a certain action is taken care of. It has many number of tags which are inside form. To list a few, we have I'll be doing all of this inside comment. Yeah, so inside forms, we have many tags like input, we have something like text area, we have something like button, we have something like select or option, like many more. Like these are few that you will be using quite often. And there's one more that is used, it is label. So these are few major tags that are used inside form tags. Uh, Even form tags have few attributes. So what are the attributes of a form tag? Are first of all, its method. So what method does is it tells you what kind, like how you want the data to be processed. Okay, like you want that for say that you have a form and you like there are two values to this. First of all, this get and post. So when you use the get method, what happens is whatever data the user has entered gets added to the URL as a name value pair. It gets added to the URL in the form of something like URL, then question mark, then name equals to value, then and then name equals to value. Something like this. And it continues like for a number of fields that you have. Every field has a name and every field gets a value that the user enters. So if you use the get method, it somewhat does this. And if as a developer, you can just access it from the URL and you can say that, okay, for this name, this value was entered. For this name, this value was entered. The post value, whereas does what it does is it sends form data as an HTTP post request. So whatever data the user has entered, all the data is sent somewhere. It's not appended in the URL. So the benefit of it is that encryption first of all, because if you're sending some data from your system to some other system, you're basically trying to encrypt it first, then you are sending it, right? If you're using get, then what happens is that you're changing something in URL. And what happens sometimes is that, for say, if there's someone who is looking at your system at the moment when you're using it, so he can try and access all those information that you have entered. So it's kind of safe to use post method instead of get. Then there's also this thing called as autocomplete, and it's quite self-explanatory what an autocomplete does. Then there's one more thing, action. Now, what action does is this attribute specifies what happens once the form is submitted. For say you submitted the registration form for some social media site. So after clicking on submit, it should direct you to login page or maybe log you in as a new user or something like that, right? So that action is basically defined inside the action attribute of the form tag. So if we look, okay, now inside this, we'll talk about input tag because input tag is the only tag I would say that you will use again and again because everything starting from your text to checkbox, date, email, everything is there inside input tag itself. So for say I wrote input and by default input has this text type and yeah, I closed it. So if I refresh, I'll get this input tag. So, but I can't see anything, right? Because it's just an input tag over here, and whatever I want, I can remove. So there are certain disadvantages, I would say, because if you just look at it, you won't really get an idea about, what this is like. Why is there a triangle over there, right? So what I would like to do is to add some placeholder. Now, what a placeholder does is, for say, name. So, what a placeholder does is it adds an this grayish faint kind of thing. It will stay there until I have typed something. So my user gets to know that okay, that this field over here there's some purpose to it, and it's prompting the user to enter name over there, right? Otherwise, I can also do one thing, and it is yeah, I can also add some value to it. For say, I have for say I want to give some default value that is mm, hello. So refresh. So it will have some default value. I have to remove it and then enter name. Otherwise, I could add some label. In order to add some label to it, I'll have to first enter a name over here. Okay, like I have to name this input tag with something. For say I name it as name, and then I open a label tag, label for, and then I have to mention this name over here. Okay. So after this, I'll mention name colon save fish. So you'll see that there's this label added to this, like it's just beside it and says that okay, this is for name. So this is what a label tag does, and this is what an input tag does. So these two you'll be using most often, input and label. There's one more, this button. This is a very basic button that HTML provides us with. If you'll just find a button that's there, and if you add something to it, like click here, and I'll add some break lines so that it can get it more properly. Refresh. So yeah, click here. So one thing you might notice that yeah, this was our initial page, and when I click here, first if I enter some name, I entered for say Mayank Agrawal, and then I click here. So you'll see that this thing gets appended to the URL. So why does this happen is that default value of any form is the get request, like the get method. So whatever I type in this, since it has a name called as name, so whenever I clicked, so it generated a get request and it got appended to this URL. And it said that, okay, this name Mayank Agarwal was entered in the name field. And similarly, if I do over here method post, let me just remove this part of the URL. And if I again type Mayank, click here. So right now you'll notice that nothing happened in the URL, right? It just like whatever details I entered here got disappeared somewhere, but it didn't appear in the URL. So in this way, the URL is also not tempered, and even your data gets secured, right? So this is one thing. Yeah. Now one more thing that like input has is you can add anything to it. For say it is text. Instead of text, I want password. So for password, as you might know that you don't want anyone to look into, like while typing also you don't really want anyone to look at your password, right? So keep this name as password. So yeah, you see that there's this name field Mayank, and then there's this password field. But whenever I type something, say, so you notice that whatever I type, it's not being shown over there, but it's just being there. So also one thing that when I click, whatever I type comes over here, right? So this is one thing. There are more other values to this input type, which are yeah, everywhere. Uh, Give me a second, I'll be back. Yeah, so you can add many more things into it. For say, yeah, instead of password, for say I want something as an email ID. So I can type email. If instead of name, I will replace everywhere as. So yeah, when I said email, it should be an email tag, right? It should not be any, like I just can't type Mayank and click, because it will generate this error saying that this is missing an at the rate, because it's expecting an email kind of input, but it's getting a normal text. So if I type something like this and click, then it won't generate any issue. But again, the problem is that everything gets appended in the URL. So this is one thing. Then we can also use this for date. Instead of text, I'll do date. Now date doesn't have a placeholder, something in a text way. And instead of name, I'll do. Yeah, so you'll see that we got this selector option over here. Its whole calendar opens up and I could select anything and click. So there are many more to this. There's password, there's checkbox, and you can look into it, because input, like input is a thing that you will be using again and again. And it's kind of useful because only one tag just changing the value of an attribute does all the difference that you can see on the screen. So this also shows like how powerful the attributes, or the the way the HTML tags are written matters, because everything over here defines, because if you just look at them, it's almost same, but just changing the value over here somewhere changes everything inside in the site. So that kind of thing. And Moreover, you can then input tag also has some more, like more attributes to it, which you can look up on your own. Now there are few other things that I'll discuss. There are few tags which are also called as the styling tags for, say, let me type anything random. Hmm. So yeah, this is a normal text. And also one more thing, that in order to write any content on a website, you don't actually need a tag around it. If you just write it somewhere inside body, it will anyhow get rendered. So yeah, so if you want to make this bold, so there are two ways you can do this. One is the strong tag, and the other one, yeah. So it became bold. The other one is the B tag. So basically, there is no difference between a strong tag and B tag. One more thing that you should keep in mind is that this you can also do something like this. Like you can add a B tag or a strong tag or any other tag you want inside, and any tag. Like for say, if I want to add B tag inside H1 tag, I can do that without any problem. Something like this will happen. For say, I want to do it italics. So for italics, it's I. Save and refresh. So, but you need to keep this in mind, that the tag that you open first should be closed at the end. Like you just cannot mess with this. Something like I can't do, I'll cut this and put this over here. So you'll see that everything should break. Okay, yeah, whatever it is. So it's not permitted to write something like this, because you need to keep in mind whatever is opened first needs to be closed at the end. It might be working here because it's italics and these are just styling tags. That's why it is working maybe. There's also something called as the strike, yeah, strike tag, which basically strikes whatever is written. Then yeah, and also you would see the benefit of VS Code, that you'll get this red kind of thing, which shows that it's something that you won't want to do, because so normally people don't want to strike off something that's written on a site. So this is one thing. Like these are few of the styling tags. Again, there are many more tags in HTML that you would see as you would proceed with making your own sites and stuff. One last thing that I would discuss is lists. Per se, if I have to make a list of what 5 items. So yeah, one more shortcut that VS Code provides is, first I want to make an something structure like this, so I can simply use OL, then this, and LI, then times 5, because I wanted 5, so I 5 and then plus tab. So yeah, so what OL over here means is ordered list, and if I type anything here like one. Yes. So yeah, it's an ordered list. As you can see that everything, it's numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So a list like this is called an ordered list. Instead of OL, if I just do a small change over here as UL, save and refresh, so it becomes bulleted. So that UL represents an unordered list. and the li over here is the list item. Okay, so which means that, and yeah, this is also a feature in VS Code. It gives you the definition of the tag over there. The li element represents a list item, if you can read. So yes, so one more benefit. Otherwise, yeah, there's many more tags that like instead of li, you can also use something called as dl. You can use something like dl, or you can use something like dd, or maybe something like dt. So all of these tags are kind of definition based, and mostly you'll be using li itself, because the lists are often used while making nav bars or adding footers, because there's a list of what do you say, anchor tags that are being used. So first, say you want to add a list of anchor tags as well. So instead of item over here, you can just add a um, you can just add an anchor tag over here like a normal anchor tag would do. So these are all the things that I plan to discuss today. Also, if you guys have any any problems, you can just write it down over here. Okay, how did you hide the password? Does it hide it by default? Yeah, the input type password does it by default. It hides the password for you, and you can also change, like instead of bullet, if you want to add something else, you can do it by changing some attributes itself. Any other questions? Okay, so since there are no questions, so Daniel already shared this link on chat, so you can refer to this. You can refer to this again. This is a cheat sheet kind of thing for HTML, which you can use, and even many things from this presentation are repeated in that. So you can look into it. There's also one website called as W3 Schools. You can visit this as well, and I will actually say to visit W3 Schools image one, because I found something interesting over there, and you can actually see, like you can actually read everything about websites on W3 Schools, like everything starting from HTML to CSS to JavaScript. It's all there. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. If you guys still have any questions, you can type it out, or we are good to go. That's an extension of Chrome. The extension link is, I don't have the link, but it's called as Work Hard Anywhere. So you can just install that. Welcome, no problem. And yeah, also we'll have our session on 19th as well, in which we'll be continuing this. And we'll also add CSS to it. And yeah, we'll be making some cool looking websites at that time instead of just messing around. No, it's on 19th. No, no, not on 19th. Daniel, when is the next session? It's on 26th. So yeah, you'll always get all these notifications on Discord server. I hope you all are already there. So how do you give an option to unhide the password? Uh, by default, it's not there, but you might look into some other tags. Maybe you could use just HTML text if you just want a normal text kind of thing. Otherwise, there's one more attribute that you might use for adding that I kind of thing that you, I guess that's what you're asking. So there's an attribute for that as well. Cool, thanks, no problem, no problem.